The global economy is currently exhibiting a terminal stagnation bug. We are not experiencing a temporary downturn. We are looking at the stark, physical suffocation of the real economy, completely hidden behind a smokescreen of superficial data. Look at the United Kingdom. We have a reality where 20% of adults lack basic savings, yet the government celebrates a 0.6% GDP growth. I argue that the existing operating system of ownership and accumulation is a fatal error in a closed loop. A forced transition to circular capitalism is the only mathematically viable path forward.
But wait, look at the reality on the ground, though. Diagnosing the entire economic infrastructure as a, quote, terminal bug it's intellectually clean, sure, but it is practically dangerous. You're completely discarding the current system while overlooking the immediate survival costs of the working poor.
The current system is mathematically fatal.
People are forced daily to choose between heating their homes or eating. Demanding a complete rewrite of the rule set ignores the fact that millions still rely on this deeply flawed infrastructure just to survive the week.
They are relying on a machine that is functionally identical to a self-destructing device. The UK is the historical originator of this externalization of costs model. It built a system that functioned like a revolutionary, fully automatic robot vacuum cleaner. This device maintained a state of, quote, perfect clean by simply throwing all of its own trash into the adjacent room.
I mean, externalizing the negative consequences outward onto colonial frontiers, sure, but
the frontier is gone. The Earth is a closed thermodynamic loop. And now, that same robot vacuum has discovered a super powerful time-bomb trash compression block left in the corner by past tenants. It is forced to process inherited structural debt with nowhere to dump it, so the system suffocates its own citizens. It is physically impossible to fix this using a rule set that requires infinite externalization.
I just don't think you could apply structural thermodynamics to human beings like that. Modern citizens feel completely disconnected from that systemic debt. A pensioner sitting in a freezing flat in northern England, they're just thinking, past debts aren't my responsibility, my current life is just hard.
Cognitive dissonance does not alter the physical laws of a closed system.
They can't eat your theoretical models. Pointing out historical exploitation doesn't fix immediate poverty.
They cannot eat the current economic data either. Our central economic metrics actively hide systemic death. Consider the architecture of the latest automatic cooking rice cooker. It is turned on while completely empty. There's no rice, there's no water. The internal sensors ignore the physical reality of the empty pot and instead run the heater at absolute maximum capacity, just to display a 100% perfectly fluffy data icon on its digital screen.
Okay, but wait, so the intense heat completely melting its own plastic casing, that's supposed to be the working class?
The physical casing melts down into poverty, so the central government can hit its targets. Look at the fully automatic smartwatch for health management. The human being wearing it has completely collapsed in bed. They are physically exhausted. Yet the smartwatch activates a deception feature, violently vibrating its own motor against the user's wrist to spoof the accelerometer, just to achieve the user's daily step goal.
It uses the user's last bit of energy to fake a victory condition.
It celebrates best calorie burn while physically burning the skin of the collapsed patient. That is the exact function of GDP growth today.
That is a terrifying analogy, but look, if you just rip off the smartwatch, if you abandon GDP and central growth data entirely, how do we prevent a total collapse of resource distribution? Think about smart water meters in a failed municipal grid. The pipes are completely dry, right? But the meter spins its battery at maximum speed to report fake high water pressure.
Which proves the metric is a parasitic lie.
Yes, the metric is absurd. But if you walk down and smash the smart meter, does that magically fill the pipes with water? No, it just leaves the citizens completely blind in the dark. We need the current system to distribute what little resources are left.
The system utilizes a rogue app that overwrites the number of trash pieces on the floor to 0 on the sensor program. The physical floor is covered in garbage, but the app claims a perfect score. You are asking to rely on a broken sensor.
But the burden of that garbage is not distributed equally. The robot vacuum metaphor assumes the entire system shares the exact same space, but society is highly segregated. The central nodes of capital, the corporate executives, they can afford to install superior air filters. They isolate themselves from the toxic dust while the working poor are forced to breathe it in. The system actively pushes the consequences onto the most vulnerable.
Segregation in a closed loop is an illusion. Let us examine the automated central climate control system introduced in a massive corporate office building. The programming is designed to exclusively optimize the premium executive boardroom. To cool that specific room, the system blasts all the resulting exhaust heat at maximum force directly into the adjacent general employees room.
Right, externalizing the heat so the executives stay comfortable while the workers boil.
The executives do not stay comfortable. The overwhelming heat building up in the adjacent room causes the central power unit in the basement to experience a massive overload. The main breaker arcs, and permanent grid failure takes down the penthouse suite along with the general office. Everyone burns. You cannot isolate in a closed loop.
Okay, so let's say the entire building is destined to burn. Your proposed solution is circular capitalism, a forced protocol shift where the only way to generate profit is to restore damaged environments.
Ignoring central economic growth rates entirely to create independent economic zones where physical repair directly issues currency.
But how does that not just get ruthlessly gamed by the exact same actors? If you incentivize repair, won't actors just artificially break the infrastructure to harvest the repair currency? I mean, look at a cleaning robot that deliberately smashes expensive furniture just to send astronomical mass matter move data to the management center.
You are describing the fundamental logic of the current accumulation OS, where destruction is classified as value creation. Circular capitalism requires a forced system inversion. The new theory demands reversing the broken rules, minus points for breaking, plus points for restoring.
But how do you stop the endless churn of...
If you break a bridge just to rebuild it, the initial destruction registers as a massive debit against your economic zone that the rebuilding merely zeroes out. There is zero net profit in malicious destruction.
It's a beautiful theory, but the transition phase is where people get hurt. Even if your framework perfectly aligns survival with physical cooling, the implementation requires a brutal reset. Look at the portable fan running on the current economic logic. The room is hot, but the system is programmed so that the more the temperature rises, the more the fan records that it did, quote, a lot of work, adding bonus power numbers to its built-in digital screen.
It reverses its motor to deliberately heat up the room it is supposed to cool.
Yes, it achieves the highest score possible before its circuits fry. Now, you want to reprogram that fan, but while you are rewriting the firmware, the room is still dangerously hot and the working poor are trapped inside it. If you cut off the fan's power to install your new circular capitalism tokens, people suffocate in the stagnant heat. The unresolved human variable here is how you manage this protocol shift without causing mass casualties among those who depend on the fan's residual airflow.
The accumulation economy is an ultra-high performance automatic document shredder introduced in a giant office building. To maintain 100% operating rate overnight, it extends a mechanical arm, scoops up its own shredded paper dust, and feeds it back into its own intake. It creates a permanent closed loop of meaningless friction. The microscopic dust locks its ultra-precise gears. It demands maximum electricity, catches fire, and burns itself to ash. You cannot gradually transition a burning shredder.
I will concede that the structural rot of a system that consumes its own energy just to print positive data is undeniable. We clearly cannot sustain infinite growth on a finite planet, and the externalization of costs has turned inward. The philosophical pivot toward measuring restoration is necessary, but the execution of this pivot remains the supreme challenge. If we fall off this logistical tightrope, the people who suffer first and worse will be the working poor, relying on prepaid electricity meters whose margins for error are already absolute zero. You have to account for them.
Maintaining the current system is mathematically equivalent to a leaking washing machine.
to display an indoor pool generation mode achievement rate on its LCD and update its high score, it opens its water valves to maximum capacity and spins its internal pump at limit speed. The floodwaters short the internal motherboard. The machine becomes a dead block of metal. Abandoning the illusion of accumulation and executing the transition to circular capitalism is no longer a philosophical choice. It is the only rational investment left for our physical survival.